Your attention, please, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching, yes, the Yankees Entertainment and Sports Network.
The great number 7, Mickey Mantle.
If you had an artist draw the perfect athlete, you just take Mantle.
Mantle had gifts from God, literally.
This may sound silly, but I always thought of him sort of as a Superman.
You were almost in awe of the talent that he had.
I know Jeter is real big in New York, but Mickey owned New York.
He just had that ability to stir people, to create that hum and buzz of excitement.
Mantle at his best was one of the 10 best players who ever breathed.
Mickey Mantle was one of a handful of men in the history of baseball who rose so far above the game he became an icon. But Mickey was more than just a baseball icon. He was an American icon. Hi, I'm John Sterling for the Yes Network, and this is Yankeeography. The All-American boy, that was the Mick, blonde hair, a great smile. It's been said that Mantle became such a matinee idol because he was the first superstar in the era of televised baseball. If that's the case, they couldn't have cast a better leading man. Joe DiMaggio was a New York legend, a baseball hero, a name synonymous with excellence. Imagine being the man who had to replace DiMaggio in center field for the New York Yankees. Now, imagine that man exceeding expectations and forging a legend of his own.
Mickey never thought of himself as being this icon. He never thought of himself as being this huge hero.
Mickey Mantle, this icon, there was only one Mickey Mantle. I mean, he was a special guy in so many different ways to so many different people.
We lived in a town of about 200 people, and so we had the black and white TV, and Saturday afternoon I'm watching, and they said, and now the next superstar for the New York Yankees, the switch-hitting center fielder from Oklahoma, Mickey Mantle. I said, Dad, you can be from Oklahoma and play in the major leagues? And I said, that's what I want to be.
And here out of Commerce, Oklahoma, comes this touched with gold flash of baseball greatness named Mickey Mantle. And that was part of it too, the perfect name.
The perfect baseball name, christened by a father who saw the game in his son's future and whose countless hours pitching to him against the family barn helped send him on his way.
I think he was very instrumental in Mick's, career because that's all he did was play baseball with his dad.
To tell you how much my dad knew about baseball, he told me someday in Major League Baseball there was going to be 2 platooning. That's left-handed hitters against right-handed pitchers and right-handed hitters against left-handed pitchers. That was 1936.
For Mickey, baseball was not only his fun, his play, but it became very early. I mean, 8, 9, and 10, his career. Mick
told me when he was 5 years old, he knew what he wanted to be. He loved it. I don't think you had to force him to play. He loved it.
But growing up wasn't all fun and games. The Great Depression hit Oklahoma hard, and Mickey's dad spent long days working in the lead mines. As a teenager, Mickey learned the true meaning of hard work.
My junior and senior year in high school, I worked in the mines with my dad.
He used to work in the mines with a sledgehammer, breaking, pieces of lead zinc.
Mickey never knew any other way of life except that hard scrabble work ethic that Oklahomans had and most Americans had during the middle and end of the Depression.
And that's what I did for a couple of years. And I always have felt that that's what built my back muscles and my forearms. I think one of the reasons I always had bad legs was that the top of my body is bigger than the bottom. I mean, people see me and they can't believe I'm not 6'4", 6'5", I'm only 6 foot tall.
But Mickey was big enough to play both basketball and football. In fact, folks expected that one day he would be the quarterback at Oklahoma University. But a devastating knee injury during a high school football game almost cut short his future in any sport.
They talked immediately about amputating the leg because they thought the infection would spread and then would be just into his bloodstream and beyond control. Mickey, when he got just a whiff of that, was ready to crawl out of the hospital. I don't think they would have ever got him under the knife.
Well, Mickey obviously kept his leg, thanks in great part to a new drug called penicillin. His focus shifted, however, to baseball, and Yankee scout Tom Greenwade couldn't help but take notice.
The day he stopped to watch us play, I hit 3 home runs, 2 right-handed and 1 left-handed in the river, which was pretty far off. And Tom Greenwade, after the game, got a hold of me and he said, "Would you like to play with the Yankees?" I said, "Heck yeah, I'd like to play with the Yankees."
He was there the night Mickey graduated with a check or 2 checks in his hand.
And Greenwade signed me to a contract.
The bonus or signing figure was $1,500, which probably enabled Mickey to buy his first decent suit of clothes and probably enabled the Mantle family to upgrade the plumbing in their house. It went a long way.
That was about the time that some of the guys were starting to get pretty good bonuses. And I think he was just playing me down to me so that I wouldn't ask for a big bonus.
Greenwade became not only the envy, but sort of the patron saint of every scout in baseball who dreamed of signing a Mickey Mantle.
Coming up next.
I read all those things about him. Outrun a rabbit and hit the ball over the moon.
We thought that Mantle was going to be a great player.
Once they got into the season, Mantle struggled.
When you say the name Mickey Mantle, you automatically think center field, but that was not the original plan.
The Yankees initially thought of Mantle as a shortstop because they had plenty of outfielders. The idea of being able to have a guy who could hit for average and hit for power and play shortstop.
The mere thought of Mantle was enough to even intimidate the Yankees' current shortstop, a 10-year veteran and an MVP.
I had my bags packed when I read what he could do. Outrun a rabbit and hit the ball over the moon.
Rizzuto had been reading too that I was the best shortstop in the Yankee farm system, and that I was going to take, he was getting kind of old, and I was going to take his place. And after he saw me field about 3 or 4 balls, he said he didn't worry anymore. He knew I wasn't going to be a shortstop.
When I saw him field, I unpacked. He was not an infielder.
So the Yankees put Mantle in right field, simply a way station until DiMaggio retired, when Mick would make the move to center.
We thought that Mantle was going to be a great player. And this was going to be my last year in '51. And we all felt that he could carry the load from there on in.
New York fans couldn't wait for this 19-year-old phenom to make his debut, for they saw Lou Gehrig, Babe Ruth, and Joe DiMaggio all rolled into one.
But once they got into the season, Mantle struggled, and he was overwhelmed, by the sizes of the crowd.
What Casey needed to do is send Mickey back to the minors so that he could relax, take some pressure off of himself.
Mickey went down to Kansas City, but his slump just got worse.
I had really lost my confidence now, so I called my dad down in the mines, and I told him, Dad, I'm in Kansas City. He said, "Yeah, I know, I've been reading." And I said, I don't think I can play ball. I can't even hit here in Kansas City. He said, "Where are you at?" And I said, "At the Aladdin Hotel." He said, "I'll be right up there." So he comes up. I think he's coming up to, give me a pep talk or something. He comes in the room.
Mickey was crying, "I can't make it," and all this. And so he said, "Just get your suitcase out. Get your clothes packed. We'll go home." He said, "I thought you were more of a man than this."
I thought I raised a man. He said, "I didn't raise nothing but a coward." He said, "You ain't got no guts. You can just go back and work in the mines with me."
He needed that kind of, stern talk from his dad to say, "Hey, wake up. You want to go back and work in the mines?"
Well, it took me about an hour to talk him into letting me have another shot at it, Finally, he says, "Okay." He said, "I'm going to leave you here." He said, "Don't ever call me crying anymore." He said, you're better than that. You're just having a slump. Everybody has them. You're going to be all right." And sure enough, after he left, I started hitting again.
So Mickey worked his way out of the slump, and within a week or two, he was back in Yankee Stadium.
And he was back to stay. Mickey had a solid rookie year, showcasing an awesome combination of power and blazing speed.
A lot of people don't realize it, but when Mickey came up to the major leagues in 1951, he was perhaps the fastest player in the game.
Mantle and the Yankees made it to the World Series in '51, but with DiMaggio hobbled by an Achilles heel injury in center field, Mickey was asked to do double duty.
Casey said to Mantle, "You catch everything you can get to from right field." So that's what was on Mickey's mind when he went into the game.
I was playing center field. Mickey Mantle was playing right field. And this was the coming great star of the New York Yankees. There was a fly ball hitting the World Series, and Mantle was chasing the ball.
Mickey was going full speed. They were just about ready to close in on the ball and make the catch, and he heard this very calm voice a foot away from him say, "I've got it."
When I got there and he hollered, "I got it," when I tried to stop, my back cleat stuck in one of those rubber drains that they have in the outfield to keep the rain, from soaking it. And when I tried to stop, my knee just went right out through the front of my leg.
And his knee just blew apart.
At the time, it was no big deal to anybody because we didn't know that Mickey Mantle was going to be the great ball player that he was. He was just a kid that had come up. So no one put that much emphasis on the fact that he was going to be hurt that bad.
Mickey could only watch as the Yankees beat the Giants, but en route to his surgery, he realized that his father might be hurt worse than he was.
When we got out of the cab at Lenox Hill Hospital, my dad got out first, and I eased over to the door, and then I put my arm on his shoulder to jump out. And when I put my weight on him, he just crumpled over on the sidewalk.
Mickey didn't know it, but his father had the final days of Hodgkin's disease.
We spent the rest of that week watching the games in the hospital at Lenox Hill. They operated on my leg, and then they told me that he had cancer.
Mutt Mantle only got to see his son play 1 year in the major leagues. Mickey grew up fast, enduring his first big league injury, and then marrying his high school sweetheart, Merlin.
It's like I wasn't a kid anymore, all of a sudden I'm the man. And I didn't have my dad anymore to say, "Hey, you got to do this, you got to do that." So I'm saying, well, I've got to make myself bear down now, I've got a lot of things to play for and work for. It made me realize that, it wasn't just a game anymore. It was, I've got to really start working.
Mickey Mantle had many great seasons with the Yankees, but one was truly special. For in 1956, Mickey performed at the level of the all-time Yankee legends and beyond.
Ruth hit homers lefty. DiMaggio hit them righty. But Mickey hit them either way.
The summer of '56, it really was Mickey's year.
It just took me 5 years to do what they said I could do in 1951.
He had suddenly matured a good bit. He was now in his 6th season as a big leaguer.
I think it's just experience, In 1956, I would have been 25 years old. I finally became, a ball player, I guess.
What can I say? Everything he did was perfect. He led the league in RBIs, home runs, and batting average.
He did everything right. He was great. 56.
There was probably never 1 year that one player had like Mickey had when he won the Triple Crown.
The Triple Crown is one of the very, very special accomplishments in all of sports.
And Mantle took that accomplishment to new heights by posting numbers that surpassed everyone. Mickey led both leagues in home runs, RBIs, and batting average, and led the American League in an amazing 7 offensive categories. It was no surprise when Mantle won the MVP award in '56, or that in the World Series, the new king of baseball rose to the occasion once again.
Everyone always thought of Mickey Mantle in the classic sense as the big game player. There was never a better example of that than the 1956 perfect game when Don Larson made baseball history for the Yankees against the Dodgers.
In that game, Mantle's solo home run off Sal Maglie gave Larson the only run he would need in his unprecedented achievement.
Mickey Mantle
He also came up big in the outfield.
Gil Hodges hit the ball, I remember. Probably the best catch I'd ever made in my life, you know, because I wasn't really a Willie Mays or a Joe DiMaggio, but I could outrun the ball, you know, and catch up with it. And I did that when I outrun that one and caught it.
Mantle was the silent hero in Larson's date with destiny.
Here comes the pitch. Strike three. A no-hitter, a perfect game for John Larson.
In a perfect season for Mantle and the Yankees. Mantle won the Hickok Belt in '56, awarded each year to the most outstanding pro athlete. But the Mick didn't rest on his laurels. He fine-tuned his hitting in '57 with a more cerebral approach.
That year, Mickey was more of the scientific hitter than he would ever be later and had ever been before.
Mantle shows the quick hand action necessary for a high-speed swing. Mickey's stance is a spread of 24 inches, and he strides 20 inches. Almost all top-flight hitters use a stride shorter than the original stance.
Mantle won his second straight MVP award in 1957, as his newfound thinking man's approach to hitting resulted in a career-high .365 batting average. Behind Mickey, the Yankees won the World Series in '58, but missed it 1 year later for just the second time in a decade. And that was unfamiliar territory for the Mick.
When he went home to Dallas on the plane after the last game of the season, knowing that there wasn't any World Series for the Yankees, he actually broke down and cried. He had become so accustomed to succeeding, to the triumphs of October, to not be there, to have to go home humbled without winning a pennant, was almost a humiliation for Mantle.
Coming up next.
They used to say that I was the leader of the Yankees.
The players loved and idolized Mantle because he played when he was hurt. It took him a half hour to bandage him up before every game.
Welcome back to Yankeeography. When you talk about leadership by example, Mickey Mantle is at the head of the class. He wasn't a rah-rah guy. He didn't call team meetings. All he did was play every day, quite often in pain. If Mickey hit 2 home runs and the team lost, he agonized. If someone made an error that cost them the game, he did his best to lift the guy's spirits. Mickey treated everyone with respect, from the owner of the team to the parking lot attendant. That's why he ruled the clubhouse. And that's what made Mickey Mantle such a leader. Mantle had come a long way from commerce in his first few years with the Yankees, but the transition was made easier thanks to some rather unlikely friends.
I was a country boy from Oklahoma. Billy was a Pachuco from Oakland, California, and Whitey was a street kid. None of our backgrounds were alike, and maybe that's the reason we got along so good. You know, we had a little bit of everything. We was just like brothers, you know. I mean, 3 different kinds of people, but we were all after the same thing.
Billy, Mickey, and Whitey really were the 3 amigos, a wild bunch that played hard both on the field and off it. Some of their escapades produced stories that have become legendary.
One of the stories that everybody wants to know about, it seems like, is the old Copacabana incident.
We were all out celebrating Billy Martin's birthday.
Sammy Davis Jr. was performing. And at a table next to them sat this bowling party. And this one drunken guy got up and started yelling racial epithets at Sammy Davis Jr.
We didn't like that, and we kept telling him to be quiet. So anyway, it turned into a bit of a melee.
Hank Bauer went into the bathroom with this fella and beat him to a pulp.
But anyway, we all had to go to court. I said, well, I don't know, Your Honor. I was kind of in the background there. I was standing in the back, and I see this guy laying at my feet, and I picked him up, and I looked at him. It looked like Roy Rogers rode through there on Trigger, and Trigger kicked him in the face. And everybody got a big kick out of that, and the judge says, case dismissed.
Bauer, Martin, and Mantle were all exonerated, but the Copacabana incident convinced the Yankee brass that Billy Martin was a bad influence on the Mick. And it wasn't long before the spark plug second baseman found himself a member of the Kansas City Athletics. It was obvious the Yankees considered Mantle the heart of the team, but it was Mantle's heart that really pulled the squad together.
When we weren't successful on the field, he took a great amount of the pressure himself for losing.
He is a team leader. He inspired us as a team. And I think at that time we had a team unity that you won't see in baseball. And I think Mickey was a valuable part of that.
They used to say that I was the leader of the Yankees. I'm not sure that was true. It made me proud that they said that.
He was a great individual, especially with his teammates.
Mickey was great. He brought a presence when he walked in. I sure enjoyed being around him.
But boy, well, if you were Mickey Mantle's friend, you were a friend for life.
In a sea of pinstripes, Mantle stood alone. Without fanfare, he earned his teammates' undying respect.
I saw Mantle as a visiting writer, and Mantle, the players loved and idolized Mantle because he played when he was hurt. It took him a half hour to bandage him up before every game.
He had to be gauzed up and then taped, and then with a rubberized ace bandage about a quarter thick, it looked like a fire hose, put around one leg.
They said that the other players, even though they would have a small injury or something, wouldn't get out of the game because they thought I was playing with really bad legs or something, so it would make them play harder. And I was proud of that. That made me feel good.
Mantle never let others know the extent of his injuries. It was just another reason why his teammates loved him so.
He was a tremendous team player, and I think a lot of things have always been left unsaid about how great he was in the clubhouse, how great he was with young players.
Back in those days, they used to treat rookies pretty bad. But the moment Mickey put his arm around me, all that stuff stopped.
He was absolutely, from a standpoint of team effort and teammate, outstanding.
Coming up next.
There's never been that kind of challenge of two teammates.
A home run for Mickey Mantle. It is going, gone to Roger Mantle.
In 1960, the Yankees were back in the World Series. Led by home run king Mickey Mantle and MVP Roger Maris, they appeared invincible.
It was a feast and famine World Series. The Yankees would win by double digits and the Pirates would be struggling to get 6 hits. And then the next day the Pirates would squeak out a win 3-2 and the Pirates kept staying in the series.
What happened to them is like David and Goliath, you know, we had such a great team.
Mantle had a phenomenal series with 3 home runs and a .400 batting average. Still, the Pirates somehow persevered.
The Yankees seemed to outclass them by so much and to dominate them, but they couldn't put them away.
Swinging a high fly ball going deep to left. This may do it. Back to the wall goes Berra. It is over the fence. Home run. The Pirates win.
Everything Mickey did was undone by Mazeroski's historic home run.
It was crushing. And I remember I got quite emotional after the game. I went in the clubhouse, and there was one other person in there, and he was crying. His name was Mickey Mantle.
He was actually crying in the clubhouse. He was embarrassed that Pittsburgh beat us.
Following the loss, manager Casey Stengel was replaced by Ralph Houck, who had some fresh ideas for the Yankees starting lineup.
When we come out of spring training, Ralph told me that he was going to probably hit Roger third, me fourth, because he thought that it would help Roger. He said, "You are our leader. Whatever you do is what we're going to do this year." And I took off like a ball of fire. I really did kind of carry the club.
Mantle led the charge in '61. A 3-home run game in May was just the beginning. But every blast he hit was matched by Maris, and the home run race captivated the baseball world.
There's never been that kind of challenge of two teammates.
The home run for Mickey Mantle. It is going, gone to Roger Mantle.
You had the element of Roger and Mickey challenging each other and put that element together with the challenge against Babe Ruth, and you have the kind of drama that can't be captured in a book or in film or any other way.
Mantle and Maris, dial M for murder.
And it was played out, which is the essence of baseball, every single day.
Maris and Mantle remained friends throughout, despite public perception to the contrary.
Well, there was a lot of stuff written that we didn't like each other. That was the farthest thing from the truth it could ever be. I don't think I ever had an argument. Me and Roger lived together that year. I can remember he used to come in, wake me up, slap me in the head, wake me up, and he got the paper and he said, "Hey, Mick, wake up," said, "We're fighting again."
There was no rivalry. There was no dislike, no distaste for each other. They loved each other, not just as ball players, but as human beings.
Unfortunately, Mantle would have to drop out of the race in September due to a bizarre set of circumstances.
He had the flu or a virus of some kind, and somebody told him his doctor to go to, and he went and got a shot in his hip for it, and then the thing got infected.
It was such an ugly, raw, open area. You could almost put your fist in it, and that's what Mickey Mantle had been playing with.
Always the consummate teammate, Mantle felt nothing but pride for Maris when he finally broke the record.
Mantle always pointed toward what Maris achieved, said he outdid me, which was a very gracious thing to say.
He was one of the best all-around baseball players I ever saw. He wasn't just a home run hitter. I mean, he had a great year, and I would like to say that I think that's the greatest single feat I've ever seen in my life when he hit those 61 home runs.
The Yankees returned to the series in '61, and though he was still hurting, Mantle was a true warrior.
Mickey went up and said, "I'm playing today." So when Mick would talk like that, you listened.
I think he dominated the scene at that time, the fact that he was injured, the fact that perhaps there was blood showing through his uniform, and yet he would play. And because he played, we all, I think, gave an extra effort.
Inspired by the Mick, the Yankees won the World Series. Mantle was not surprised.
Best team I ever saw in my life, and I really believe this, was the '61 Yankees. I never got to see the '27 Yankees. Everybody says that was the greatest team ever, but it would have been a good series, I think, if we'd have got to play them.
Coming up next.
He was still doing heroic things.
Here's the payoff pitch. This is it. There it goes. It's out of here.
The injury that kept Mantle out of the '61 home run race was just one of many that continued to beset him throughout his career.
I can remember one of the New York papers running a photograph of Mantle with an arrow and a medical explanation pointing to every place in his body where he had been injured. But the remarkable thing was, in spite of all that, he still was having those 300 seasons and those 40 home run years and more.
Imagine missing a month of the season, yet still winning the MVP award. And that's what Mickey did in '62, leading the league in both slugging and on-base percentage, second in the league in batting average.
It was like he just ignored the injuries. They could slow him down, but they couldn't stop him at all.
Mantle simply took his pain and suffering and inflicted it on opposing pitchers.
When I hit the ball good, I could hit it as far as anybody.
Mickey invented the tape measure home run, twice almost leaving Yankee Stadium.
I hit the facade twice. One of the times I hit it was a line drive. If it had just been about 6 inches higher, it would have made it out of the stadium.
The ball just hit it at an angle just from the bat straight to the facade. There was no this, it just went yow. It just looked like somebody took a gun and went bang.
He was still performing. He was still doing heroic things.
Especially in the World Series, where no one hit more home runs than Mantle.
Pitch to Mantle. Swung on, there she goes!
The '64 World Series was Mickey's 12th and last, his record 6th with 2 or more home runs, including this game-ending blast.
Hitting the most home runs of anybody ever in the World Series in a lifetime was a record Mantle was as proud of as any that he had.
After the '64 season, the injuries continued to mount, but with the pain, so did the milestones.
Here's the payoff pitch. This is it. There it goes.
Hitting his 500th home run was a major thrill for him. It was a small and exclusive club when Mantle joined it. I mean, it was a monumental career number.
Mantle finished his career with 536 home runs. Number 535 against Denny McLain was one of his personal favorites.
He was ahead like 6-0. He was having a great year. He come up almost to the plate, not quite. Called Bill Freehand, the catcher, out about 10 feet in front of me, and he says, "I'm going to let him hit one." And I heard him, you know, but you can't. Sometimes he's a little wacky. You couldn't believe him. He might go back out there and nail me in the back of the head. So he threw it hard, but right down the middle. And he got it right where I wanted it. You know, hit it way up in the upper deck. As I was around the bases, I come around third base and I looked out at him. He went, "Give me a wink."
By the spring of '69, Mickey realized it was time to retire. But to those who were there, even a broken down Mantle was still better than most.
Let me tell you this, you know, Mickey retired because he said he just couldn't play anymore. He was our best ball player by far. And the only reason I think Mickey quit, we were a 500 team and Mickey was used to winning.
I thought it'd be great to play without any pressure. Whenever there wasn't anything to play for, it was just a job. So it was time for me to quit. I was only 36 years old, and I didn't feel like that I had really accomplished what I'd set out to, you know, but I had to give it up. It was time for me to retire.
Mantle's 18-year career was so amazing, he was known as the Magnificent Yankee. Induction into the Hall of Fame his first year of eligibility was a fait accompli.
I think this is the first time that's ever happened that a guy has come into the Hall of Fame that was named after one. Before I was born, my father lived and died for baseball, and he named me after the Hall of Famer, Mickey Cochran. I'm not sure if my dad knew it or not, but his real name was Gordon. Hope there's no Gordons here today, but I'm glad that he didn't name me Gordon.
Mantle entered the Hall of Fame because of his skill as a baseball player. But for that and more, Mickey received still another honor from the Yankees and the fans.
The thing that I got the biggest kick out of, in 1969, the Yankees had Mickey Mantle Day at Yankee Stadium.
If you're watching at home, I'm just, first of all, so very sorry that you could not be here. This is Pat Summerall. Number 7 will never be worn again at Yankee Stadium. I think that says it all. Happiness is Mickey.
This is one of the proudest moments I've ever had on this hallowed baseball ground. And I'm terribly privileged to have the honor to once again call from the dugout one of the all-time Yankee greats, the magnificent Yankee, the great number 7, Mickey Mantle.
They applauded for 9 straight minutes. They would not be quiet.
I mean, that's one of my favorite things today because we have tape of it. And I still get just really goosebumps.
There was only one man who could make this next and most significant presentation. Mickey's predecessor in center field as well as in the Hall of Fame, the Yankee Clipper, Joe DiMaggio.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Mickey, I know just how you feel out here today. This is a nervous moment, but it's also a very thrilling one, too. I'd like to present you with this plaque, which will be right along in an honor spot out there in center field.
Mantle certainly deserved an honored place in Monument Park, but the Yankees went one step further to ensure the Mick would always stand alone.
It's my honor to
thank you on behalf of your teammates for the many thrills you have given us. Those clutch hits, booming home runs, great catches, and an occasional strikeout. Now number 7 is being retired. The Yankees have asked me to give to you this uniform.
At that time, they'd only retired numbers 3, 4, and 5, and that's for Ruth, Gehrig, and DiMaggio. And to have your number retired along with those, you know, it's about as big a thing as could happen to a ball player, I think.
And now, Mickey Mantle, Yankee Stadium is all yours.
It came as no surprise to anyone that even on Mickey Mantle Day, the Mick would then share the spotlight with DiMaggio. The symbolic gesture was vintage Mantle.
Joe gave me a plaque. They're going to hang on the center field wall. And certainly if they give me one, his has got to be hanging just a little bit higher than mine. I think to the greatest Yankee that I ever saw, I didn't get to see Babe or Lou, but Joe is the greatest one I ever saw, and I think that it's going to be a great honor for me to present him with this plaque. Thank you very much.
You know, that was a really good day for Dad. You know, he was so proud of that, and he did such a good job with his speech.
When I walked into this stadium 18 years ago, I felt much the same way I do right now. I don't have words to describe how I felt then or how I feel now. But I'll tell you one thing, baseball was real good to me. And playing 18 years in the Yankee Stadium for you folks is the best thing that could ever happen to a ball player. Now, to think that the Yankees are retiring my number 7 with numbers 3, 4, and 5 tops off everything that I could ever wish for. I've often wondered how a man who knew he was going to die could stand here and say that he was the luckiest man in the world. But now I think I know how Lou Gehrig felt. It's been a great honor. I'll never forget it. God bless you all, and thank you very much.
Following his retirement, Mickey settled into a post-baseball lifestyle, but he was haunted by the specter of the Mantle family curse, the one that took the males away at a very young age.
It impressed on him the idea that he was going to have a short life and he better live it fast.
Alcoholism is a progressive disease, and it just got worse, of course, after he stopped playing ball.
Even after baseball, Mick was often on the road, so his family looked the other way whenever he was at home.
When Dad drank, just for us to be with him, if it meant drinking, I was going to do it because I wanted to spend time with him.
Mantle's youngest son, Danny, was the first in the family to fight his addiction. Mickey would soon follow.
When I was in treatment, I was scared to come home because I was thinking, everybody's still doing it. But, I had no idea that it would be the domino effect that it was.
Danny had gone into treatment, and he saw that Danny could do it. And he told Danny, he said, I wish I could do that. He said, you can, Dad, you can.
With his family's support, Mickey put his old habits behind him. The family's renewal was both immediate and impressive.
I saw a big difference in Mick. Everything became more important, I think, after he got sober.
He became closer than he had been for many years with his family and had whole new relationships with each of his sons.
Unfortunately, the damage was done, and in June of '95, Mickey had his cancerous liver replaced.
I don't think Mick would have lasted maybe not even another day, had he not got the liver that night. And I'm sitting with him, people come rushing in the room and started unhooking him and everything. And I said, what's going on? What's happening? And they said, we have a liver.
Given a second chance, Mickey began a crusade to increase awareness for organ donations and to use his life as a warning to youngsters.
I would like to say to the kids out there to take a good, you talk about a role model, this is a role model, don't be like me.
At the end of his life, he went out of his way to tell his story not in an effort for self-pity, but as a cautionary tale.
It was powerful. As powerful a moment as Mickey Mantle, who was the epitome of power with a bat, ever had.
I want to start giving something back. It seems to me like all I've done is just take, have fun and take.
If you could say that somebody reaches their ultimate strength, their ultimate power at the end of their life, Mickey Mantle was a great example of that.
But Mickey's cancer continued to spread, and it wasn't long before he was back in the hospital.
In July, when he had to go back, I don't think it really hit me, but I think now I had a feeling that he wasn't going to come home this time.
Mickey spent more than 30 years signing autographs for fans. Now, his fans reciprocated, as the current Yankees signed a ball delivered to Mick by his old teammates.
We spent 4 hours in the afternoon with him, and Doc said, geez, that was the greatest medicine in the world for him.
Mick loved it. He didn't seem to be sad, you know. I think when they came, he was just happy to see him. And I think that was good that he got to visit with them one more time.
Mickey Charles Mantle passed away at the age of 63.
I think he was just ready to go. He suffered a lot, and I think he was ready to go.
I'm glad that I was there, you know, to be able to hold his hand and everything, because I can just, you know, remember him looking at us.
Today we have lost one of our own, one of the greatest ball players in the history of baseball.
Yankee Stadium dwarfs everything else, but as Mantle walked to home plate, it seemed like he was bigger than Yankee Stadium. The big muscles in his back and that 7. Oh, he was something else.
Mickey's funeral, held in Dallas, was befitting the American icon he'd become.
I think it showed really all the love and respect that you know, his fans and teammates and friends had for him.
You know, it occurs to me as we're all sitting here thinking of Mickey, he's probably somewhere getting an earful from Casey Stengel and no doubt quite confused by now.
He was more famous than the President of the United States, and the people really showed it when he passed away.
We tried to crease our caps like him, kneel in an imaginary on-deck circle like him, run like him, heads down, elbows up. I just hope God has a place for him where he can run again, where he can play practical jokes on his teammates and smile that boyish smile, because God knows no one's perfect. God knows there's something special about heroes. So long, Mick.
Mickey Mantle never really understood why people idolized him. After all, he did have his share of flaws. Who knows, if Mickey had taken care of himself, he really might have smashed every record in the book. Mickey used to tell people that yes, he was a role model, the perfect example of what not to be. He was, of course, being hard on himself. For those who played with him and against him, those who got to see the player on the field and experience the man off it, Mickey Mantle was the perfect role model, and certainly one of the greatest baseball players of all time. For the Yes Network, I'm John Sterling, and thanks for watching Yankeeography. The proceeding has been an exclusive presentation of the Yes Network.